Today, the first time I'm doing two people at the same time. That sounds naughty, and you might have heard of them. They currently have over 200,000 subscribers, but don't let that subscriber count fool you because their view count was like, wow, it's constantly through the roof. They're called the Media Knights, Ari and Denise. Other people like come up to me and be like, have you heard of the Media Knights? Do you know who they are? They haven't seen anything. Do you guys know the first time you really disagreed on a movie or a show?
Oh.
If he didn't like it, would that have been a problem?
Break up right then. Toss him out. Right on the street, the cold.
Let's just agree to disagree. She's also my best friend in a way. You know, we game together, we chill together.
My wife turns the lights off when I walk in the room. What was the first movie you guys saw together? Not on the channel.
It was actually...
No.
It was like, we should have done that for the channel. I wish we could have done that for the channel, you know, kind of immortalize it.
Was there a bit of apprehension at all in terms of being a couple?
The biggest concern was just people not understanding where we're coming from. Being out there in the public and sharing your opinions on a huge platform, I have like severe stage fright at the same time.
So this is really cool to me to hear that the first time you guys had a truly like emotional sobbing experience, it happened on camera and you guys got to share that with people. What is going on there, Reject Nation? This is Greg Alba here for another installment of Diary of a Real Reject, the show where we talk movies, TV shows, and possible celebrities of how they help shape our identity for the most part. Today, I am joined, the first time I'm doing two people at the same time. That sounds naughty. The first time I am talking to two people at the same time, and you might have heard of them. They have been blowing up in the past couple of years. They're called the Media Knights, Ari and Denise. They currently have over 200,000 subscribers, but don't let that subscriber count fool you because their view count was like, wow, it's constantly through the roof. And the way how I got in contact with the Media Knights is through our mutual editors, the people who help us look great and get around yellow dollar bill signs and monetization problems all the time.
Oh, yeah.
That is the team Prepper or Praper. Who knows how you say their name?
Shout
Doesn't
out.
matter.
Shut up.
Praper. They are taking over the reaction field, and now they're going to take over the podcast field when it comes to their edits. And I've had other people like come up to me and be like, have you heard of the Media Knights? Do you know who they are? They haven't seen anything. It's so cool to be talking to you guys. And this is a very surreal moment. We only just met for the first time about, I want to say 5 minutes ago, maybe 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, just about.
Yes, I would
5
say
minutes.
we've got exactly 5 minutes of knowing you, Greg, and it's been going great.
It's going excellent. You guys are 3 hours ahead. You're talking with me at 7:30 my time, 10:30 p.m. your time. I feel like let's just swing it in things. I want to get to know the two of you, especially because you're a married couple. I'm married as well, so this is exciting to me. So my first,
we're adults.
We're freaking
it's incredible.
Adults right now.
Adulting.
I know.
Yeah.
It's such a mature time in my life, and my wife would totally disagree with me. So my question that I would love to ask you guys this, and I don't know if you guys have actually talked with each. I didn't have this discussion with my wife until like a couple months ago. So I don't know if you guys actually know each other's. I'd be curious to know if you guys know each other's answer to this question. Who was your celebrity crush growing up, and why?
Ooh. All right, well, ladies first. I'll throw you under the bus right there.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. I think this is my time to shine. I have two guesses. I think it's either Emma Stone circa Zombieland.
Oh, cool.
Or Cameron Diaz, the Mask era.
Wow. Okay, that's
You're
a
guessing
good
mine, yeah?
answer.
Yeah.
I thought you were
my other
answering
husband.
yours, honestly. And I was like, oh, you're the first bisexual person I've talked to.
Well,
but you're actually answering for your hubby. I forgot that's how I set up the question. Okay. So you said Cameron Diaz and Emma Stone in Zombieland were the two questions.
Yes, for him.
Okay. And what about for Denise?
okay, I am gonna go ahead and say it's unfair because I know you too well. So I think I know.
He was like, it's not even a challenge.
I'm going to go ahead and say Daniel Radcliffe, Harry Potter.
I did not
know.
expect that answer.
Yes. And okay. Yeah, I think I'm going to go with Angelina Jolie, Lara Croft times.
Yeah,
I think that's it.
they're both accurate.
Okay. Awesome.
There you
They're
go.
both accurate.
That's badass to hear. All right. Which one would be the most fun one to? Let's go with Angelina Jolie, Lara Croft. What was it about Angelina Jolie? Was it just physically, or was there something about her that you were like found inspirational? What was it about her that you were gravitated towards?
Oh my God, it was so inspirational because I was obsessed, like as a kid, with the game Tomb Raider as well. So, and like whenever I did have the time to play, and trust me, it was not a whole lot. Like I just really wanted to be her. You know, she's rich, she's sassy, she's an archaeologist, she gets to travel. I'm like, oh my God, that is goals. And she, you know, wields 2 guns. So, you know, there's really not that much higher of a standard that you could set. And seeing Angelina Jolie in that movie was just, oh, like she was like flipping her guns and stuff like that. And I remember, you know, seeing some of the behind the scenes work where they were talking about how she wanted to do way more of her own stunts, but they couldn't. And I remember being like, oh yeah, I want to be like that. That's totally like what I want to be like, you know? And that was basically it. And I remember watching Girl Interrupted. And then I was like, holy shit, like she's so versatile as an actor. Like you get so many different facets, and she was so believable in them to me at the time. And I remember just being so mind blown by that. So it was kind of like a conglomerate of everything. And I think it does help that she's very pretty.
Yeah, that always helps to look at pretty people.
It does.
Would you say that there were certain personality traits or qualities about her beyond just like these cool, confident physicality things that you might have adopted, maybe even subconsciously? Like for me, I like this is not my celebrity crush growing up, but like I noticed with binging a bunch of Ryan Gosling movies in a row, when I listen to people in person, I learned about eye contact from watching him and the significance of that, and of like true connection via eye contact. And I learned that from like watching Ryan Gosling movies. But was there anything about Angelina that maybe you found yourself adopting?
Yeah, 100%. Especially, you know, when in the Tomb Raider era, I was a bit more of a shy kid. I definitely was that kid that was being bullied. So it was like the strength and to, you know, the will to stand up for yourself and also for what you believe in, right? Even when people tell you not to do something or whatever, it was that will that I always craved so much, especially as a youngin'.
Oh,
you know, it
cool.
was something that felt so difficult for me to attain. And like eventually I think I definitely adopted that as a person. I don't think anyone is going to call me shy nowadays. I can tell you that.
Oh, that's really neat. So like your household, I imagine, was a little bit, was it an antithesis to what you were, because you said you were shy, and do you have like siblings as well?
No, definitely only child
Only
syndrome
child,
right here.
okay.
Yeah, and like I grew up in a really small town in Germany, and you know, I was with my mom and and like we were like the Turkish immigrants there, so there, you know, there were some moments where it didn't quite gel a whole lot, you know. And I was very much a neurodivergent kid. Like I realize that now. Like I was a bit of that weirdo that I had a hard time connecting with other people, especially people my own age. So I really did more solitary things, you know, like again, like practice the piano and, you know, play some PlayStation when I could, or like rewatch the same movies over and over again. Cause like that was me. I hated trying anything new when I was younger. Like it was always like the same comfort movies over and over and over again. So, you know, I think that was kind of like the source of comfort, right? That was where I kind of, like you said, I love that you asked that actually. It's the fact that you see all these characters on screen and you craft in your head all of the best aspects that you think you will need when you're all grown up.
Sure.
And you try to model yourself after that. And it's actually funny, like Tomb Raider, like 100% was one of those characters. I'm like, I think I can be a badass. I think I can be
That's
strong,
cool.
you know?
Yeah, because you talked a lot about like comfort and routine, and when I think of Angelina Jolie, I'm like, she's anything but that. You know, she's such an experimental individual, and such. I remember being younger and Now she's like, composed, poised mom. But back then she was a little bit of a wild card, So it's like,
Yeah.
it's pretty cool to
Yeah,
actually.
I remember the blood vial thing and like
Oh,
all
yeah.
that era. It was a fascinating time, the 90s and the 2000s.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to get to your other one, but now, like, you guys gave two, and this is the first time I've talking to two people at the same time. This is the first time people have given me two. So Ari, you said Emma Stone, Zombieland, and Cameron Diaz from The Mask. I remember watching Cameron Diaz in The Mask. Absolutely beautiful individual.
Okay, yeah, you get it.
Yeah. But I guess I would ask same thing. Likewise, was there anything about her? Because it's really easy to. I think when you're young, you get caught up in the physicality of someone, and then oftentimes it's not till you like look back and go, you know what? It was actually something about who they were playing or who they were beyond just what they look like that I was actually drawn to. Were you able to discover that at all?
Well, I'll be completely honest with you. With Cameron Diaz, it was mostly just physical.
Yeah, understandable.
But with it was very early on too. I was very young. I probably watched that movie when I was, I don't know, 5, maybe 4.5, 5. So I just remember just seeing her and being like, "Ooh, okay." I remember her still from that film, and I haven't revisited for quite a while. But Emma Stone, I do remember. And we also actually just recently watched it. I made her watch it here for the channel. And yeah, I would say I like I would say probably like the defiance aspect of it. I like that she has a bit of a bite to her. Like she's a fighter. She's feisty.
Cool.
She's badass, but she also kind of, she kind of screws people over, which is not the most healthy trait. But yeah, I thought she was charming in that. And yeah, I think those are the traits.
Why were you drawn to those qualities?
Honestly, I don't know, man. It's not healthy. I'm telling you. I think it's just, I like the fact that she's brave in that sense. Like I would say the fact that she is still, obviously she's a survivor. She's in this zombie apocalypse. She can clearly handle herself and her younger sibling, which I guess I also feel that kinship because I'm also an older, I'm the oldest of all of our siblings. So I understand that dynamic. But in terms of her, I would say just the fact that she's out there, that she's, willing to go the extra mile, that she doesn't really have, that she speaks her voice, she speaks her mind, whatever's on her mind, whatever she disagrees with, she's very open with.
Cool.
And then at the same time, she's not.
Yeah.
At the same time, she does not know how to communicate, and then she just disappears. So, I like that contrast.
Where'd you grow up?
So, this is going to be a bit of a headache. So I was born in Boston.
Okay.
But I was raised in Madrid, Spain for most of my early, as a young boy and then into my early teenage years.
Okay. And with both of your parents?
So my mom was a single mother. So
I was picking up on that a little bit. Yeah. Just how you talked about the Emma Stone character. I was like, that's really where I was going with this. To be totally honest. Yeah, that's what I was picking up on.
Yeah. So I grew up a single kid with a single mom. And then, later in life, we got super lucky and my mom met a super great guy, married to the guy. And so I had someone to kind of, step up to the challenge and become my stepdad. And, it was amazing. It was great. And then, we moved to Madrid, Spain after that. And that was a completely, that changed my life completely, as you can imagine, growing up in Boston and having all my friends there to just absolutely like out of nowhere, pull the plug and, relocate.
So weirdly, you both had like an immigrant experience growing up.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really fascinating. And then I take it from like what you talked about, the independence of Emma Stone and stuff. I'm like, oh, it sounds like qualities that a single mother with several kids would probably have to possess. And so it's a little bit. Would you say that there are qualities about what you said about Emma Stone's? What was her character name again in Zombieland?
Wichita.
Would you say there's anything about Denise that resembles those qualities and those traits that you recited?
I would say so. Yeah, definitely the feistiness,
the communication skills.
The communication skills. The fact that she speaks her mind. Whenever she disagrees, she's very much vocal about it. Brave too. I would put that on there.
Oh,
I would say that.
That's really. How long have you guys been together?
Ooh, 2019.
No, married since 2019.
Married since, okay.
Together since 2018.
There you go.
It's a good amount of time.
Yeah.
That's a good amount of time. 2019, you got married?
Yeah.
Okay, then I guess that'll unpack the question. And you started the channel. Was you guys start the channel in 2022? That's the oldest upload I could find.
Yes. Yeah. Yep. 2022, August or September, I believe. Yeah.
Okay. Damn. That's
when it all started.
Really great growth for the two of you. But really quick.
Thank you.
You said Emma Stone and not Emma Stone. You said Angelina Jolie and who?
Daniel Radcliff.
Daniel
Harry
Radcliffe,
Potter.
yes. Was it like Daniel Radcliffe specifically, or was it the idea of Harry Potter and the personality there? Which one was it?
I think it was a bit of both.
Okay.
Really, I really loved Harry's character, and again, it was his defiance as well. There were so many opportunities where he could have tuck tail and run, or, just be more quiet. And, you see him starting to come into his own and starting to learn, his craft. Right. And I remember just being so enamored with his bravery as well. He steps into Hogwarts knowing absolutely nothing about witchcraft and wizardry, and he still does his best. And there are certain things that he naturally takes to, and there are certain things that are more difficult for him. And then, how he realizes that he has such actually a past through his parents with Hogwarts.
Yeah.
All that jazz. I remember just loving that so much, especially I resonated with that a lot because when I was 12, my mom and I moved to Turkey. And so Turkey was like Hogwarts to me in that sense. So Harry Potter was again, it was another comfort thing, right? Where it's like, okay, if Harry Potter did it, I can do it too. It was kind of like, it was a little bit like that, as cheesy as it may sound. I really had a thing for guys in glasses back then. Okay. I'll be very honest. It was definitely the glasses and the scar. Cause I also have a forehead scar. So I was like, oh my God, we have so much in common. We're meant to be. So yeah, I think, you just definitely see it in the progression of his character in the books in particular, he gets sassier. I think the movies kind of stripped him of that. He's a little bit more sassy. He's got a bigger mouth in the books. And I remember loving that, he had that attitude to bite back. It's like you said for Emma Stone's character, right? It's that bite. And it's always something that I really wanted to have, because the people pleaser in you just it would just make it so hard for me to retort to anybody in any way.
Gotcha.
And so eventually now it's really hard to turn off. I've gone, it's a pendulum swing. I've gone the other way where it's now I will absolutely retort. That's my knee jerk reaction. But again, it's like what you asked, right? It's what parts of characters that we really admire. For me, it was something that I really wanted to adopt in my own personal life, and it ended up working out. I think I did a good job adopting those personality traits.
That is really cool. I never thought I'd hear someone draw a correlation between Harry Potter and Lara Croft. The way he did that, I was like, that's impressive. So when you guys started this channel together, was there a bit of apprehension at all in terms of being a couple on camera to be doing a YouTube channel where you're pretty much going to be very I think a big part of doing reactions is beyond commentary and stuff is, of course, being empathetic and willing to be vulnerable. And with you guys as a couple, for me, I don't know if I would go hardcore with that the way you guys would have done it. Was there a bit of an apprehension?
Yeah, I think, at first we thought about it quite a lot. There's a lot of things that came to mind. The obvious one was, being out there in the public and sharing your opinions on a huge platform. It's funny because I didn't grow up being super sociable, but I had a really tight group of friends that I grew up with. So I, spend my evenings going out and all that, but I have severe stage fright at the same time.
Okay.
So, being in front of the camera has been kind of the exercise to get me over that for the most part. But at the same time, as a couple, I think there's a lot of things that we considered as like, well, we're out here. We don't really state it on our channel. We kind of just go with it. And a lot of people ask is, it's cool.
Oh my
They're
God,
interested.
are you a couple? Are they brother and sister? I'm really trying to figure it out.
Yeah, I'm like, anybody that has that has attention to detail, they probably, spotted the ring.
Like, it's very
here and there.
obvious,
But I would say, the biggest concern was just, I guess the people not understanding where we're coming from. I think a lot of the first initial comments that we got is like, and I'm sure you guys get it all the time too, is like, oh my God, how have you not seen this movie or whatever. Course. So when she's showing me a movie, it's like, we get a lot of those comments sometimes. And I guess the initial concerns were like, how are people going to take this? Like, are they going to enjoy our commentary, our opinions on films that have been out for decades now? And how much of it, how much weight do we have in this, right? How can we apply what we actually know and what we are passionate for, and for people to want to listen to it, right? Are people going to be interested in people that, and like me, for example, who has never seen that many movies from the 70s or 80s? Are they going to want to listen to my, to my commentary? And for her, it's the same, but with other genres, right? So I guess that was the main concern.
What was the first movie you guys saw together? Not on the channel. Can you recall the first time you guys saw what movie you guys saw together, just as a couple?
I know the first one she showed me.
Okay.
And I wish we could have done that for the channel.
Oh.
You probably already know.
Yeah.
You do?
I think so.
Okay. So the first movie we actually watched, and she was like, you have to watch this. And she was actually one of those YouTube people. She was like, oh my God, you have not watched this. And I was like, no, I'm so sorry.
It's worse.
Yeah, she grilled me over it. It was actually The Matrix.
No shit.
Yes. Yeah, I know. And in hindsight, it's so funny because it's kind of our inside joke is like, fuck, we should have done that for the channel.
Yeah.
I wish we could have done that for the channel, kind of immortalize it.
Should have waited for that.
Yeah. So we watched the first one and I remember being mind blown.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it goes back to my interest too, growing up.
Which was what?
I guess I reached the point.
What was these interests?
Sorry, what?
Sorry to interrupt. What was you've talked like your passions and your interests growing up. What exactly is that?
So it's funny because I really was into storytelling and I did grow up watching some movies, but I was kind of like boxed in the one genre that I really enjoyed growing up, which was comic book movies and sci-fi adventure, I would say. I would classify them. But other than that, I wouldn't really watch anything else. So, and it's funny because growing up, I'm talking to like 2010-ish or so. I remember looking back in movies that had a 1990 release date and up. I was like, oh, that's too old. I need to watch the new stuff because that's the new VFX and it's going to look great. And I mean, looking back, I sound like a total idiot. And I've mentioned this before on the channel. I'm like, I'm so disappointed in myself. But, we go through this growing journey. This journey of growth and appreciation, and now I look back at those movies and I'm like, those movies are bangers. So when she showed me that, I was like, yeah, no, I've never, I know I've seen Neo before, I've seen Keanu Reeves with the suit and the trench coat, of course, but I have never actually sat down and watched this. And she put it on one of our date nights, and I remember just being mind blown. I was like, whoa, I didn't think this was going to be this deep, this philosophical, this amazing, like the effects, everything. I was going crazy. And I think that was the initial spark of it all.
It's usually either that or Terminator 2, which tend to hover as my favorite movie of all time. I know you guys had a reaction to Terminator 2 as well. Yeah. Those two.
And really enjoy that.
There's definitely similarities thematically between the two of them, while both executed very different. So I got a question then, Denise. If he didn't like it, would that have been a problem for you?
Break up right then.
Really?
Toss him out right on the street in the cold. Not kidding. No, I mean, of course, I think when you're sharing a movie with someone, you're sharing it with the hope that they like it.
Of course,
right?
yeah.
It's not the most pleasant experience when something that means a lot to you is kind of shot down by the other person. I was hoping he would like it, but I mean, if he didn't like it, like it would have been fine. It would have been like, it's okay. Like, it's just a little something that I'll keep to myself and, nourish in the dark.
But it sounds like it was an emotional, like to me, at least, and especially in the early days when I showed my wife, then girlfriend, anything that like I loved, and then I saw her respond positively to it, it became like a memory for me, something to really hold on to.
I mean, it really does become a core memory. I think it's especially like if you're someone that loves movies, you know, it's almost like a way we express our affection, right?
Absolutely.
Like we share something that we truly love, and you know, sometimes it's like it's the usual stuff, you know, like The Matrix, because like it's awesome. But then there are also certain movies that maybe are a bit more of a guilty pleasure or whatever, and like it's those little moments that we get to share bits and pieces of ourselves. And then when the other person is receptive to that, I can totally understand why that becomes like a core memory in the relationship.
Do you remember the first movie you showed Denise?
Oh, great question.
I don't think it was a movie.
A show?
Was a show. Yeah. Well, yeah, true. 2 shows actually come to mind. One, listen, I kind of had a feeling. I'm like, okay, I'm going to risk it. I know it's a great story and I really enjoyed it, but I do not know how she's going to like it. And I'm talking about the show Sons of Anarchy. Okay. I had really enjoyed it, enjoyed all seasons of it. And, you know, I love the Hamlet-esque type themes that are going on in that. And I was like, you know, you might appreciate it, but at the same time, you know, it's all dudes, it's bikers, it's like, you know, a lot of testosterone in there. I'm like, you know, you might not like it. I don't know. And I remember, you know, showing her that. And, well, yeah, I don't know how did you lie to me back then, Denise? Did you enjoy that show?
Damn it. No, I genuinely like the show. It's just one of those shows that there were a lot of moments where it was really a tough watch, but I really, really enjoyed the story. And I was like, you know, I was very pleasantly surprised that was something that he was into. I was like, oh, no shit. Like Sons of Anarchy, I remember hearing about it, you know. I lived in the San Francisco Bay Area for a few years.
Oh my God.
So like I remember like
okay.
So I remember like hearing about them, right? And I remember like, you know, rumors about, you know, like the bikers and stuff like that. So when he was like, you should check out the show, I was like, shit, I mean, why the hell not? You know, a little throwback to NorCal. And it really was a great show, but it had some really tough moments, man. I'm going to say, I think that's a one and done type of show for me.
My wife has wanted me to watch that show she loves that show. She's been wanting me to watch it for a minute. I haven't seen it yet. No, I haven't seen it.
You got to watch it.
Yeah, that's one
I recommend.
Yeah.
It's very good.
Yeah, I can tell you recommend it. Yeah. Do you guys recall the first time? It's so fun to talk because you guys are a couple. So I actually like asking these questions. Do you guys know the first time you really disagreed on a movie or a show?
Oh, we've disagreed in a few actually, but I'm trying to go back to the first one.
Has it ever gotten heated?
Oh, well, not really heated, but it's gotten spicy for sure. Where it's like, you know what? Let's just drop it because let's just agree to disagree. You're on the wrong side of history here, but you know, we'll let it slide.
I remember 2. And hilariously enough, it was like one of them was me begging him to watch it. Okay. And the other one was me showing to him. I don't know if you've ever heard of this movie called Stoker.
No. What is this, Stoker? So
it's with Nicole Kidman, Matthew Good, and damn it, I forgot the actress's name. So the person that wrote it is actually Wentworth Miller, but he sold his script under a pseudonym. Okay. So, because he wanted the script to swim or sink on its own, right? And I remember hearing about that and being so impressed. And like, I enjoy the movie. Okay, I liked it. It's a bit out there. I will grant that. But I remember it was the ending, and both of the movies that I was thinking of that we watched together were like we did have like a spicy discussion. It was about the ending.
Yeah, I very much dislike. Sometimes it's hard to adjust. I would say when you know, the movie's going a certain way, and you know, it's not that I want the ending that I expect to happen. It's more of when it feels like it really came out of left field and it doesn't make a lot of sense thematically, or it's just there to reinforce the themes already. So it feels like the character development is all kind of, it's coming full circle, but not in the completionist type of way, more in like the redundant type of way. Yeah. And I felt like well, I don't want to, you got to check it out first of all, but that movie kind of felt that way towards the climax of it. I was like, okay, all right, well, what are they trying to say here? Because it just seems like a very toxic message overall. But what's funny is that I really enjoyed the movie up until that point, you know. Sometimes with me, it may happen where, you know, I get 90% through a movie and then that last 10%, man, I'm like, why did you have to screw it up? Like if I just chopped that last bit, it would have been great.
Yeah.
And then, you know, sometimes it takes a turn that I'm not expecting. I'm like, shoot, that's it.
Yeah.
And she was trying to defend that 10% and I was like, nope, it's not working out for me. Sorry.
I got a fun one. Is there a movie where you're like for me, when I think of a couple that I see my wife and I in, I usually see, I don't know if you guys watch the show Friends, but I see myself like through Chandler, Matthew Perry and Courtney Cox's character, Chandler and Monica. I often see us there in our dynamics. Is there a couple in a movie or a show where you're like, I feel like that's us? Do you guys have that with anyone?
Oh, that's an amazing question.
I love the way you guys receive the questions. You see.
Sorry.
Yeah, we're like, if I had a mustache, I'd be twirling it right now.
You haven't seen it yet, but definitely Edward and Bella
Oh
vibes.
God,
You know,
no!
clearly.
I know exactly what you're talking about. No.
Oh, we're gonna watch it for the channel. It's gonna.
Oh, you
happen.
haven't seen
God.
it?
Not yet.
Oh, those are
And
fun.
now you're making it. No, this is not fair.
This is
We
fun.
did not agree
Help
to
me,
this.
Greg. Please
Fun.
talk to him.
Oh my God, you'll have a
Yeah?
blast. They're fun. They're
Yeah?
fun.
All
It's
right.
okay if you don't like them. You'll have fun. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
They're
Yes.
guilty pleasures.
Cool.
Like they're really, really fun. Yeah.
Yeah, see, thank you. I appreciate the backup
Yeah.
from Greg.
Well, now we gotta watch them.
I can't believe I'm saying that out loud. Okay, what couple? Let's get serious here. This is important.
You got to focus. You're the one that's, you know, going on the tangent of.
I offered a solution.
Let's
You
see.
didn't like it.
I'm trying to think. I can't remember.
I have a feeling some of these questions you'll have answers for like tomorrow.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
you know,
damn
that
it.
always happens, especially with interviews. I should have said that.
Yeah.
It just came to mind. Or like an argument, for example, whenever we're talking about why the movie should have ended. It's like, oh, shit. Should have said that. Forgot.
Mood.
Can you think of a couple where you're like, oh yeah, these two definitely give off Sid and Nancy vibes?
Like between like from just interacting with you two right now, can I think of a
Yes,
couple from you
yes.
guys? Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. Wow. I feel like I'd have to I feel like I'll have that answer closer towards the end of this conversation.
All right.
Okay.
But I'll keep
Okay,
that on the
fair.
forefront of my mind for sure. Yeah.
Can we circle back to this?
Yeah.
Like if I can think of something
No,
maybe
absolutely.
later.
Absolutely. I've got
Can you think of anything?
I'm honestly
sorry.
spacing out on couples. I feel like we have a very cool dynamic. You know, like she's also my best friend in a way.
Oh, that's
you
so
know, and I
sweet.
really mean that, not in a cheesy way. Like actually, like, you know, we game together, we
Yeah.
chill together. You know, obviously watch movies together. So it's tight.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, you would expect that from your wife. I know, but like at the same time, I feel like I can pretty much share anything with her.
my wife turns the
And
lights
not
off
feel-
when I walk in the room.
What's that?
My wife turns the lights off when I walk in the room.
That's always a good sign. Yep, that's healthy. That's you
That's
know.
hilarious.
Oh, man.
Sorry to interrupt your super sweet moment. That's what I'm known for. Undercutting a
No,
really
I love
tender
that, though.
moment.
You gotta, you know, that's what movies do too. I love that. See, it's like you're an inherent storyteller. It's like, you know, you have a sweet, like bonding, heartfelt moment, and then boom, something interrupts it. Some explosion happens, or
Yeah.
you know, something happens, and the zombies finally walk in.
What's-
Like that's how it is.
I agree. What comedies then are like, would you say that you guys laugh together the most at?
Superbad was pretty funny.
Superbad was
We
pretty
found
funny.
that pretty darn funny.
Yeah.
That's like your type of humor.
Yeah. We like we actually like a lot of dark humor. Like
Oh,
just in
yeah.
our day to day.
Yeah.
Like also like people that are sarcastic, people that, you know, can make those types of that, you know, people that have that type of humor, we
Yeah.
kind of mesh well with them. You know, people that can take a dark joke or two.
Yeah.
Things that we can't say on the line as much anymore.
Yes.
I know what you-
exactly.
I know what
We
you
have
mean.
to behave here. You know, I don't want to get you know, a little strike.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think dark humor is definitely one of them. You know, there are a few. I don't really dwell a whole lot in comedies, but there are a few gems that I have yet to show him, and I know that there are still a few that you have yet to show me. But like,
One came
Yeah.
to mind. We did watch Rick and Morty, and that was a blast. That was an absolute blast. The jokes there were so messed up that I remember being like, "How did they get away with this?"
I have no idea.
Have you ever?
I've seen the
checked it
first
out?
few seasons of it. I get the sense that people would like, because I have a pretty dark sense of humor, and I think that people usually with a bit of a edgy upbringing, to put it lightly, usually can have a pretty good dark sense of humor. And I think people like dark humor more than they like to let on. I think a lot of people are. There's a reason why this shit you're naming is so freaking popular, because and a lot of people get afraid to make like the dark humor jokes. But I think dark humor is like my favorite thing, and it's kind of in a weird time when you could like watch. It's weird. You can like do a reaction to a super bad or Scary Movie 1, and it's fine. But if you like make a joke today like that, it becomes a problem, you know, like, so we can like react to it and laugh at it. But then nowadays, if we like make jokes like that, it can be a bit of a controversial thing because people are very sensitive to that kind of stuff. But I feel like we're kind of swinging back around to not being as sensitive about those types of things. I think humor, to me, especially in relationship, humor is the most important thing to me.
Oh yeah.
Totally agree.
Totally agree.
It's like the main thing that like keeps us really tight, I feel. And I feel like it seems like you guys actually just make each other laugh quite a bit.
Oh, all the time.
All the time. He's the funny one. He's the one that's actually funny. I'm the one that's unintentionally funny. So
I don't know about that.
it works out well. He's teaching me on. He's working with me on my delivery when it comes to sarcasm. Because my sarcasm goes a bit too hard sometimes, where people think
You're being
being serious.
I understand.
Yeah.
I feel you.
So
I completely understand what you're talking about.
So I'm like, no, that's not what I meant.
Yeah.
So like he's guiding me. He's my coach in that sense.
I'm like, you have to at least smirk a little after the punchline, you know, or else people are going to take you seriously, because she does the whole deadpan delivery thing very well, and people are like, are you serious?
Yeah.
And then she's like, no, I'm joking. They're like, oh, thank God. Okay.
I'll tell you, it's not a movie related story at all, but I'll share a story about my wife. So one time we were at a party. This was like the first year we were dating. Let's give you an idea of our humor. We were at a party, didn't really know anyone. And then we went to, I went away. I was talking with some people. Then I came back to her and she was talking with this couple. Then I went up to her and I kissed her. I'm like, hey, babe, I kissed her on the lips. And this couple we were talking to was just looking at me so strange and weird. And I didn't know why. And then she's like,
oh, no.
I told him you were my brother before he showed up. So,
no.
Just a mess.
That is so messed up.
We don't Alabama.
But that shit just like makes me laugh so, like when she does it just makes me laugh so much. It's like, that's so funny. Yeah.
That is
That's
great. I would pay to see the look on those people's faces when you did that.
No idea what I did.
And your face too, not even knowing what the hell is going on.
Just imagining you being so confused, like, what the
Yeah.
fuck just went wrong?
they were so creeped out by what was going on.
Oh my God.
Imagine you're like, yeah, it's my wife. And they're like, wait, what? You married your sister?
It's like, listen, we love each other.
The more you try to explain, the more you sink.
Because I do.
Oh, man.
Because I know I was like, you don't want to come across judgmental in a moment like that. It's like when I encounter Scientologists. Anyway, I'll stop it there. But when you guys, like, you know, that happened before, where I think someone's joking with me that they're Scientologists. I'm like, oh, you actually are. Anyway,
No, can you imagine?
yeah, it's my my cancellation moment here. But the other part that when I was browsing through like just thumbnails, Ari, I've noticed that like, yes, you'll allow yourself to get emotional and cry as well. And do you know when the first time was that you like got emotional with Denise while watching a movie? Because I think as a guy, it can be a really fascinating experience.
That is also, wow, these questions are hitting hard, man.
Damn.
Yeah, he's
These are great.
getting us. Well, the finale of Game of Thrones was, it did give me. No, I'm just kidding. I wanted to
not
cry
those kinds
really
of
hard.
tears.
Yes, but out of rage,
It
not
was
out
more
of
like
sadness.
screaming into the abyss, you know?
You know, I didn't really get into movies that made me feel any type of negative emotion for the longest time because it was just not my jam. I already had a lot on my mind at the time, and it was more about survival, you know, especially when I first met Denise. It was about, you know, I was, you know, going to school and then working, and it was kind of like a full-time thing. So whenever I did want to watch something, it was something that was uplifting and kind of nice.
Yeah.
But I think the first thing that really hit hard to the point that I was sobbing, I don't think I've ever sobbed that way, was Green Mile.
Oh,
The Green Mile
man.
absolutely destroyed me, man. I don't even know if I want to rewatch that movie ever again. And it's the thing, it's a beautiful film.
Mhm.
It's such a beautiful story, and it hits you at your core, especially if you have any kind of empathy. And I remember I didn't care. It was being recorded. I'm there. It's my first time. And I just remember, even now, I just get choked up talking about it. Like, I just remember how I felt and how that story impacted me. And it was just, the tears were flowing, man. And I feel like after that, it's always nice and almost cathartic to kind of release that, that emotion when you're feeling sad while watching something.
Yeah, I think it's funny because like I was absolutely not a crier like at all. And yeah, in fact I had a really hard time crying in general. And it wasn't until like I think when you find someone who is like your person and who like you realize that they are your safe space, I think that was one of the things that really allowed me to be more vulnerable in general. And so the fact that I could cry in general, but also feel comfortable crying on camera, like that, I don't think I would have been able to do that if it wasn't like for, the support that, we gave each other, I think, but also how comfortable I felt being vulnerable in front of him, like that was a big milestone. And I remember like Green Mile, that was, oh man,
Tough.
Yeah, that shit broke me. Like it was ugly crying too, and it's like snot coming out of your nose, and you're just like trying to fix your situation. It was oh my god, it was so worth it though. Like what a fantastic movie.
Yeah, like I gave that example because that's the first time I felt like we sobbed. Like I actually felt like I was crying. I've definitely shed a tear or two with other films. The one that comes to mind was in the theater with Infinity War towards that ending. God. Just, I know it sounds ridiculous like Infinity War, but that Tom Holland performance, man, when he's like, I don't feel good. I don't want to go. I don't want to go. I was definitely shedding a tear there. But yeah, no, the Green Mile takes the cake on that one.
Yeah, where we actually got to, like when it hits hard.
So this is really cool to me to hear that the first time you guys had a truly like emotional sobbing experience, you actually it happened on camera. It happened with the cameras pointed at you, and you guys got to share that with people. I think this is like part of the appeal of what you guys do specifically. Like I think in the reaction field or any kind of, if there's anyone who's like, I think YouTube is often like high school or whatever I've heard high school to be like. Like there's like I didn't actually go, but when I see like when I was first doing this, there was only like a few of us doing reactions. Now there's like a billion people, as you guys know, and it's really easy to kind of like look at other channels, and it's really easy to compare yourself, especially for as long as I've been doing it. You see everyone's numbers. I mean, just yesterday, like time of filming this, like we both uploaded V for Vendetta the same day. And you guys like totally outperformed us in terms of view count wise. And it's what I have to do oftentimes is like put away comparison, put away jealousy, and often look at like, okay, what are they doing? That's actually like really cool to find out. And I think it's what we've been talking about this whole time is you guys have such a support of each other emotionally and this comfortability that seems so genuine, that I think it really does feel like we are with you guys watching a movie like in your room, and you talk about like having these first time experiences, which I think is really cool. Like with Real Rejects, it's changed so much over the years of how we do it. And now we got like a whole team of people and stuff. And I've always been more of like a talk show kind of guy. So I've always been drawn to that. Like Conan O'Brien was like my hero growing up. And seeing what you
love Conan O'Brien.
Yeah, he's like absolutely my hero. I'd die to meet him. But like hearing what you guys, how you guys just respond to each other, reciprocate this dialogue back and forth. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, this is the energy and the gravitational pull that they see you guys. Like you guys seem like you're both empathetic towards one another, And it's like, I feel like you guys are going to be like fucking huge. Like, I think you guys are going to be like really like way like beyond like view. I think there's something about the connectivity that you guys have that when you guys are connected, people connect to you. And I think that's what makes you guys such a strong YouTube channel. And
wow.
And just when you guys are super big, you remember I said something nice.
That truly means a lot to us. You know, I think a big part of why we really enjoy doing this is also connecting with people as well. Like, you know, we don't want it to be just a one-way street where it's performative or we're up here doing it for people to watch. We like, you know, jumping in the pool and seeing what people are saying about XYZ film. You know, whether we agree with that film or with their take on the film or not. And, you know, the one thing that I remember working hard on, because like I mentioned before, I was more, well, we both were a bit more introverted, was, you know, let's try to be just genuine and the realest, you know, people that we can be. Like, let's just be ourselves as much as possible. You know, it's not really natural to have a camera and lights pointed at your face. When you're doing, you know, especially when you're just watching a movie and it's a very personal experience, like, you know. So I guess like the biggest exercise for us was always, you know, how can we just try to be ourselves the most, you know, at the utmost level. And that's been something that's always been in the back of our heads to really just whatever it is, whatever opinion we have or whatever we want to say, try to say it in the way that we would normally say it if, you know, none of this were here.
Well, you guys seem like you're both respectful though. Like of the movies, even if you don't really like it or something, like you guys are really good. Surprised that for people who are coming like, oh, I haven't really watched these movies and stuff. I think you both are very. Actually, I'll usually I'll skip more toward the review than the reaction, and you guys will actually talk for quite a bit about a movie, and I'm like, okay, they really do know, like you guys know how to actually talk about movies, and so when you say like you're not really interested or growing up and all these things, I'm like, well, you're pretty articulate about both of you about movies and your experiences with it, especially with horror for you, Denise, I would say too.
Oh yeah.
The horror genre.
Yeah. Like the horror is like horror is my first love. Like it was like the first, like it was such a visceral experience for, you know, little old me. Like I remember, you know, even like this bedtime story that my mom used to tell me from this little booklet. I can't remember what it's called, but it's like a skeleton family essentially. And I think they live like on top of a hill and they have a skeleton dog. Like it's something like that. I can't quite remember the name of it, but like that's what my mom used to read to me when I was younger.
Okay.
And eventually she just could not keep reading the same thing over and over anymore because it was just me like again. So she ended up starting to tell me little snippets of it. And about Pennywise and you know, like this evil clown and you know, like these kids have to fight against him. And I remember just
I've never heard anyone do that before. That is so cool. That is awesome.
She was so creative for that. Like I have to give it to her because it's actually so smart. Like why don't you just tell stories of movies that you love or books that you love and you just condense them in a way that, you know, a child can understand. And, you know, horror became such a comfort place for me. And it's absolutely like also the vein of the kinds of scripts and books that I want to write or that I am working on at the moment. Like that's just been the way to go for me. I think horror is such an incredible space to explore human nature or make social commentary or show certain things that, you know, other genres were not that comfortable showing. You know, that was always something that I admired about it. And, you know, I remember watching the first Scream movie when I was super young or like the first like Halloween movie. And oh my God, I was like, this is amazing. It's you get to experience fear in the safety of your own home. And that was such a mind blowing experience to me. And the next thing I know, it was just a rabbit hole of all kinds of horror movies. And, you know, I'm really lucky that I found someone who will join me on that adventure. But yeah, like circling back to what you were saying when it comes to like supporting each other, I think one of the main things about the channel that like that really just pushed us into the idea of doing it was we would just spend hours and hours theorizing about Marvel.
Mhm.
Right. I remember like in the pandemic times, especially like, we watched WandaVision and like after every episode, it's like, oh my God, you think like with this scientist they're referring to, you think that's Reed Richards? Like, and of course, Mephisto. Like I remember Mephisto. We were waiting for Mephisto and he never happened. Justice for Mephisto. And eventually it was just like, hey, I think, should we try to do this? Like, and I remember I get unbelievably uncomfortable in front of a camera. But obviously this has helped kind of, I think both of us work through that.
That's crazy. How did you guys feel about skipping Deadpool and Wolverine in the theaters?
It was awful.
It was, yeah.
Fucking sucked.
It was awful. so straightforward. It was awful.
Yeah.
Did you guys manage that?
I've said it in the comments. I've said it already in the comments when people were asking. I was like, listen, don't expect this to be the huge thing because I grew up on comic book movies. That was like my bread and butter. I love them. They are a huge inspiration to, hopefully one day, even for a short film, I would love to, take on something like that. But yeah, I remember with Deadpool and Wolverine, it was a decision and I was like, this might be a one and done thing because it's really hard. The first thing I did was mute all the words on our phones that were related to Marvel.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
we stayed off and obviously we are on social media. I mean, we have to post on YouTube. So posting with one eye open, just like opening YouTube Studio, going straight into it and not really dealing with it. But we wanted to share that experience with our audience because those films in particular, Deadpool, it was me showing her. Right. Denise was kind of like the one exploring those films. And I was sharing them with her because they're, films that I very much enjoyed. So I wanted that third one, which we knew was going to be pretty huge. We wanted that to be here, and not just for the audience, which of course, obviously for the channel, but also for us. Like we're also keeping a record of, our experiences watching films and what we thought about them at the time.
That's cool. It's like, I'm calling this podcast Diary of a Real Reject, but you guys are like essentially creating like a video diary of these moments of watching these films together.
One of the purposes of the channel is also, logging our, like I said, our thoughts after a film and the thoughts that, movies that really inspire us, especially when it comes to, writing. We're both working on projects right now independently from YouTube. We're script writing. Yeah. Our stories. She's working on a whole novel. That's a whole different story. She's nuts for attempting that.
I regret it. So, it's sucking the life out of me. But yes.
The whole purpose of this was, we were very much into, we want to be able to do this at some point. But I realized at the same time, there's a lot of value in what came before. Obviously, you have to go back and see what worked and why it worked. So I knew what I enjoyed, but I couldn't articulate yet why I liked something or why I didn't think something worked. So doing this entire exercise of, watching movies from the 70s, like The Godfather, or the 80s, like The Thing, Back to the Future, it's allowed me to understand why those movies are so popular. I wasn't a contrarian, I want to say. Like, it wasn't like I didn't want to watch movies that were super popular just because they were popular and people were like, oh, they're cool. And I was like, I'm not going to watch it.
You're just a hipster.
No, not at all. It was just, it wasn't, I was always focused on what was coming out in the moment, so I was like Avatar, Marvel, whatever.
Right.
So now doing this, I have a lot of information that I think I lack the context as to why something is great now. It's like, oh, this guy did it first and this is how that has evolved. And now I kind of get that. So having this is also a great way to kind of like jump back into a specific movie that I know inspired me and say, oh, what did I think about this and why did I think it worked? Okay, cool. How can I apply that now onto my work?
What genre are you, because you said you're writing in horror, Denise, and what are you writing in?
Sci-fi. I would say sci-fi adventure, which are also kind of like the movies that, I grew up with.
Which was what? Like you said, you've been saying that, like you grew up with sci-fi, what are these sci-fi movies?
Star Wars. Okay. Star Wars was pretty big for me growing up. I would say in terms of adventure, Pirates of the Caribbean, Harry Potter, obviously, and then loads of comic book movies like Marvel, DC, all that stuff.
So you kind of listed more fantasy realm is where it seems to go. like Star Wars is often cited as sci-fi fantasy, and you listed Pirates of the
I guess
Caribbean,
you
which
could
goes
say
very fantasy,
yeah.
adventure, and what was the third one you said? I'm so sorry. What was the third one? You said Star Wars, Pirates, and
Star Wars, Pirates, Harry Potter.
and Harry Potter, very much fantasy.
Yeah.
And blockbusters. You're trying to write huge fucking movies, and you're writing like independent horror films. yeah.
No, you know what's funny? I actually would love to take it back to basics as well. Like those are the things that I enjoy, and I want to apply elements of it. But I would not dare to write a blockbuster just like this. I want to start small, and we have concepts for horror films that with a little bit of sci-fi. Obviously, Alien was massive. For me, as in particular, because it kind of married all of those ideas. I did not know, obviously, why that movie was so popular. I knew it was, and I knew about, Ellen Ripley and all these things, but I didn't quite know why it was so, why so many people gravitated towards that film. And once I watched it, I absolutely fell in love from, the set design to the performances to the way they marry sci-fi with horror. That was it for me. And I was like, my God, I want to do something like this. And then The Thing obviously kind of also tied into the whole, one location paranoia type stuff. And I'm like, oh, you can actually write something very smart with very minimal budget and keep it in one place and make it very damn interesting if you have good performances and a tight script. And that kind of like sparked that initial passion to write something like that.
I think horror is kind of the under-recognized genre that even if you splice it with something, it makes it more intriguing. You mentioned Pirates of the Caribbean, and I think there's totally horror elements in that first one. I think he doubles down Gore Verbinski way more in the second one. And Star Wars Empire Strikes Back is often set as the best one for most people. And I think it's not exactly overtly horror, but there could be horror undertones that create peril, So I really do think that it is my favorite genre. My passion is in writing as well. And
nice.
And that is the main it's hard. It's time, especially with this, like I'm doing this started off where I was mainly just in a essentially what was a studio apartment with a wall, so it was a 1-bedroom. It's like that's what it was. And then now it's evolved into what it is, and there's a whole team of people, and like we share the same editing company, prepper. There's a whole bunch of people now, so I'm like literally running a whole business operation.
Yeah.
And and finding the time to write has been like today I managed to find time, and it was like 45 minutes. Just lock it in for 45 minutes and get it done. And I do think it is like that's what's cool about Tarantino's one of my favorite filmmakers, and I think with what we do for a living, this allows us to be students of film. Like this is our way of because there's such a difference in watching a movie on your own at home.
Oh yeah.
Versus when you have a camera and you got to make commentary because you got to be extra engaged. You got to have a thought process. You got to reflect on it. So you do. It does become really cool homework. I'm surprised you guys don't watch as much horror as I've seen a little bit more horror pop up on your guys' page. What was the horror movie for you, Denise, that is the most impactful to you? I know I saw your Scream 1 reaction when you introduced Ari to it. But what was the horror story that most impacted you? Was it Pennywise
Story-wise, absolutely.
Okay.
I remember reading the book, and it was it's
a big book.
A big boy.
It's a big
book.
Yeah.
And it was, the thing is I think the movies did a really good job as best as you can, to do justice to that story, because it goes bonkers on so many different levels. I don't know if you've read the book, but
nope.
It's a hell of a journey. I can tell you that. And I remember I also watched there was a made for TV a film, an It film.
Oh yeah,
where Tim Curry was playing
yeah.
Pennywise. Yeah, and I remember I watched that, and it was he was haunting my dreams, I swear. It was true terror that I was experiencing. So Pennywise is definitely really high up there when it comes to the elusiveness of it, right? The fact that it can just turn into anything that scares you.
Yeah.
And the fact that like it is munching on children essentially is just horrifying, especially when you hear about the story as a child, right? You're in a much more vulnerable situation.
Yeah.
Where in your head you're like, I could possibly be a victim if it was real. But yeah, like it was life changing. Like I cannot explain, like I cannot put into words just how much that story has influenced me. And like another, I guess it's technically horror, but not really. I remember watching The Sixth Sense.
That's horror.
That was one of those movies where I could not believe what on earth I was watching. I was pretty young, I would say. Definitely not when it first came out. That was definitely like a VHS rental type of situation. But yeah, like those are like the two hallmarks for me when it comes to horror and fear and the things that it can help you understand or even explore, as a writer, or even like as the actors. I think that's one of the reasons why horror is such a big deal for me.
You chose you cited two movies or stories where the main characters are children who have to deal with a supernatural thing, and also there's a lot about accepting your emotions in both of those stories.
It's almost like there's a common thread there.
Yeah. I mean, is there a reason why there was? I mean, I think from everything we've kind of talked about, it seems like you've had a lot of these experiences of identifying with characters that were about, again, a bravery. Like, honestly, accepting, going on an emotional journey can be a brave in and of itself. Like, for years, I've been pretty comfortable with crying as a guy because
that's amazing.
I kind of like trained myself to be okay with it. Because I think like kind of the cliche of guys was like, walk it off, and I'm like, but I think it's because they're afraid to feel their emotions. So if like being a man means facing your fears, then I should be okay with feeling my emotions. Like it's like I like logically computed it. And so I've lost my own train of thought in that process. But like with you citing those two movies, is there something correlated to why specifically you're drawn to that kind of storytelling? That is okay to ask. If you don't want to answer, totally okay. Yeah.
No, totally. It's a great question. It just I hadn't even phrased it to myself in that way. So I appreciate you catching the correlation there. And I think, as a child, I feel like there are a lot of moments where you feel completely out of control, right? Like you have to do as you're told. You do what your parents tell you to do, what your family tells you to do. You try to trust your teachers. And, I didn't have a whole lot of great experiences with teachers, especially when I was younger. They weren't exactly like a safe space. I felt like there were some adults in my life that, where I did feel like I was let down. Not necessarily like my family, but like there were a lot of moments where, someone of authority could have done something and they didn't, right? And it's like, I think knowing that there are children out there who can kind of take their own fate into their own hands as best as they can, I think as a child was huge for me. That's why I think like we circled to bravery, because when you see another kid do it, you know that you can too. It's like it's the representation of it. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, so if they can do it, so can I. And I think that's one of the reasons why, because the enemy that these kids are facing, really, it's almost a faceless enemy, right? It's very elusive and abstract. And like the true enemy is fear. If you think about it, right? Exactly. And they conquer it in very different ways. And even in the books, like the way, like the Losers Club, the way they took on Pennywise and like the way they coped with it all on their own, it was amazing. Like it taught me like, oh, okay, so it's okay for me to be openly brave. It's also okay for me to be scared. It's okay for me to find different ways to cope with the situation. It just doesn't have to be like that one stereotypical, oh, I'm your leading person, I got this type of way. There's many different ways to handle fear and difficult situations. And I think that was like the big learning lesson there for me as a kid.
That's really cool. It's cool asking these because I think a lot of the time when I talk to people, they're not. It's kind of you're pretty much. This is what I wanted to do with this podcast. It was like a lot of times we kind of just watch movies or take this in, but don't realize how much it actually might have affected us. And you seem like you have a pretty big awareness of how these things actually did help shape your identity. And maybe that has to do with the fact that you're like an only child, so you were able to. These were like the people you hung out with or something. You know, I'm not sure. I'm not an only child, so yeah, that's a really, really cool answer. I really loved hearing that.
Thank you.
And Ari,
Thank
you saw
you.
yourself as Han Solo, I'm assuming. I'm sure you were like,
All the time, man. I was
that's
there.
me.
Oh, Millennial Falcon, yeah, that's me, the cool guy. You know, did he shoot first? Who knows? But that is me for sure.
I've never seen myself portrayed on screen like that.
Oh no,
What was it?
to a T, man.
Was you cited Star Wars first? And I know it's so late for you guys. I'm just really enjoying this conversation. If you guys want to end,
this is
just
amazing.
Are you
let
kidding?
me know.
Do not worry, we're having a blast here, man.
Yeah, thank you.
This is a perfect way to wrap up our day. Trust me.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I think Star Wars has sort of become like a religion for a lot of people, you know? And what was it about Star Wars for yourself that you felt like you saw it when you were a child, I'm assuming? And what was it that you connected with?
I connected with, you know, obviously Anakin. You know, when I was watching the
Obviously,
prequels, I
Anakin.
connected with.
I wasn't expecting an obviously Anakin. Obviously, the Darth Vader one.
No, I think a lot of people would probably connect to him, but my reason is, you know, he trained so hard to reach a specific level, right? He's trying to get to that, you know, sweet Jedi title, and you see everybody, you know, shoot him down. So that, for me, it was always, I love the, almost like the poetry in trying to avoid something to happen. And then it's actually kind of causing it, because the more they resisted, you know, him, the more they kind of caused, and you could see this in chapter 2 and 3, the more they kind of cause what we know, you know, he will eventually become. And I think a big theme that I really enjoy through, you know, all of the Star Wars films, and a big part that I connected through, again, Anakin and Darth Vader specifically, is how well they told the story about balance. I think a lot of that gets lost a lot of times, where it's like, oh yeah, like Luke, you know, he saved the day, whatever, he defeated evil. But I don't think he could have defeated evil if Darth Vader didn't allow himself to open up to those emotions and realize that he is a father. You know, spoiler alert for anybody out there that has not seen that movie. So I really love that, you know, the writing does such a great job at, you know, coming full circle and making it about neutral, which also makes the whole balance of the Force thing make sense. I really do believe that, you know, he is the chosen one. Even though he is Darth Vader, he was the chosen one to bring balance to the Force. And by kind of saving his son in a way, it all comes full circle. He became like the worst of the worst, but he, you know, inevitably brought it back. So that up and down and that entire journey, it's crazy how they still managed to, you know, wrap around and still make it make sense by the end. And you can kind of see how they needed to go through this journey to really bring balance. You know, I don't think without any of these elements, it would have worked out that well for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's essentially I think the term is like self-fulfilling prophecy. And we talk a lot about like, you know, accepting your emotions and stuff, because it will just, you repress them, they just grow before they just inhabit. And I actually never noticed, I never saw the story of Anakin's emotional journey being the thing that actually overtakes everything. I never actually quite saw it in that light before. I've heard so many Star Wars discussions, but I've never actually quite seen it. Oh yeah, it is the thematic thing kind of driving the force of it all. Oh, very cool to hear. Well, I wanted to, so there's a couple of things that I just want to ask really quick that are just like, just general things that I like to find out. Yes. Just things I like to know from time to time. What was is there a character in television or movies where you're like, I definitely adopted personality traits from them? I don't mean just like connected with or crushes. Like for me, Chandler from Friends, Conan O'Brien, very much like I adopted a lot of their like external personality traits. Is there characters that you were like, yeah, I definitely took some of that on?
Oh,
Darth Vader.
yeah. Oh, definitely. The darkness,
Totally,
man.
okay.
The bad mood when he wakes up. Let me tell you, that's definitely something I relate to. I think so. I'll talk about the person, the fictional character. I think, and this is, I know a lot of people will probably feel the same way, but I think it's one of the reasons why the character's so popular. For me, it was Spider-Man. It was Peter Parker.
Cool.
Growing up in a different, especially like he was to me, the fictional character that allowed me to go, to get through a lot of hard times, especially when I was that new kid in school, when I first moved to Spain. I didn't know the language, thankfully, but I still had to learn how to write in Spanish and a lot of things that were kind of, I was a bit more limited in how I communicated to, the new peers around me and whatnot. And it was a different environment. I remember going back and just, either watching the movies or grabbing a comic book and just reading about him having very human, problems too. Like he's getting bullied or he's got to figure out how to, make rent. Even though he's a superhero, you would assume that he could just, get by quite easily. But the fact that his struggles are so grounded, that's what, and how he goes about it, and the fact that he doesn't go the easy route, even though he is a superhero, he could easily charge, per criminal activity taken care of.
That'll be $1,000, ma'am.
Imagine the fact that he still goes back and tries to make, get by the honorable way and by doing the right thing. That was always something that I aspired to do on my day to day. And I think that's a trait that I would, proudly say that I took from Peter Parker. Yeah.
So you didn't just like superhero movie. Like it seems like you really were genuinely inspired by them.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
I don't actually weirdly don't come like I have there's someone here who one of my close friends and one of the people on the channel, Coy, and he's very much has been affected, inspired by it, personality has been shaped by it. But I actually weirdly don't come across people who have actively taken that on. You both were experienced bullying growing up?
Yeah, unfortunately for me, it was, it was pretty bad because, like I said, I knew the language, but I still, when I went to Spain, I still had a bit of an accent. I was the outsider. So, it's very easy to kind of, target kids like that. So it was tough. And I hated the place at first. I'm so sorry, but I really did. It was so different. The culture was weird. They're eating chorizo all the time. I was like, what is this thing, man? What is this? Where are my burgers? My ketchup, please.
I both said it.
Yeah, no. I'm like, I was that kid. But eventually the beauty of it all was starting to actually appreciate the culture and actually start to understand why I was different. Like some of the things probably were perceived a bit, rude there that for me was normal, in the States, it was like, yeah, it's totally fine. So like a lot of that, the cultural differences, that cultural shock was really tough because normally you go through a period where us grown-ups, we get to visit a city and we do tourism and we get to learn from that place. But I was just thrown into school and it's like, yeah, figure it out, with a bunch of kids. So I think my safe haven was really, keep calm and collected. Like even these superheroes have struggles, even they go through some tough times. They get bullied, they get whatever because they're different. And it's always them being their genuine self, which eventually makes them succeed, right? Once they embrace that, that's when they
you just
get out of
you literally summarized your mission statement with your channel right there.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah. Oh, shit.
It's a great choice.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Do you have one, Denise?
I think, once I kind of grew up a little bit, at first, like, I really wanted to be like, like Harry or Hermione, I wanted to be like intelligent and also like competent and all of that jazz as well. But I think once I grew up a little bit and I actually watched the Lord of the Rings movies, like, again, I remember just being so floored by the beauty of those characters, especially like, every single one of them, like Samwise Gamgee or Aragorn, just the pure love and kindness and affection that they were showing each other, even in the face of the greatest trials and tribulations, and that they kept fighting for what was right. but still keeping a kind heart. I think that was such a unique quality to me. I felt like because in my head I had associated strength with, more of an iron fist
Aggression.
type of situation. And I still am a person that kind of struggles with that, like it's difficult to be strong and vulnerable at the same time. And, an argument could be made that vulnerability is strength, which I certainly believe. But when you're younger and when you go through bullying and you start having mistrust towards people, it's really hard to, really allow yourself to open up,
Of course.
And having trust in authority or having trust in peers. It was really, it was a heck of a journey, to go through for sure. But I think, really growing to love Lord of the Rings, where I was like, man, these guys know how to do it, man. That's how I need to be, I think it was one of our reactions where I actually said, and this is something that I will always say, it's that if you don't have a Samwise Gamgee in your life, be Samwise Gamgee.
That's great
if you don't
philosophy.
have one. And again, it is a wonderful philosophy, one that I try to live up to. It doesn't always work, but yeah, I would say those are some of the most influential characters of my childhood, and obviously Tomb Raider.
Yeah. That's cool. So you guys live in New York, though, and New York is kind of associated with a bit of aggression in the streets.
Oh yeah.
How do you guys today as adults handle that? Considering the backgrounds you guys told me about, are you guys okay with conflict with strangers? Are you willing to just kind of fight back or get aggressive back or whatever?
New York, yeah, it does give you that, it toughens you up quite a bit. I remember, I went from, again, that was another cultural shock going from Spain way back, back to New York, and then I remember the pace was different. The pacing was absolutely insane. And like you said, the people there, I think a lot of people attribute, a little bit of that rudeness to New York, but I think it's a lot of people just trying to get to a place very, very fast, regardless of what's going on. It's I don't care. I'm just trying to get to it. Just get out of my way. And it's funny because, I made quite a few friends there where, you're walking through the street and you immediately see people just looking up. And then I remember as an outsider being in this massive city with this person who was already a New Yorker, grew up there, and, they were showing me around at the time, being like, yeah, if they're looking up, they're tourists, just keep going, man. Just run through, just don't worry about it. And I was just like, okay, I'm getting the perspective of an actual New Yorker. Yeah, a lot of times we've had that encounter where, people bump into you or, they have I feel like they're a bit more direct and they don't really care. Most of the time I feel like it's not about caring or not about the emotions. I think they just try to be very direct about why they're upset and kind of flipping that switch and being like, oh, okay, it's not personal. A lot of times they're just it really is because they're in a rush or because something else upset them. It's not directed at me. That kind of took the edge off of living in a city like New York. I think if you go in there and you take everything personal, then it's going to definitely hit hard. I know it did for me quite a few times where I was like, what the heck? What do you mean? Dude, just relax. Where are you bumping into me or whatever?
Walking over here.
Yeah, I did feel that at first, this, I would say there's an energy to it. And at first it can be quite aggressive, but I think it's just the pacing of the city itself and its people. They're quite, I would say New Yorkers are really warm actually. It's just, it takes a little bit for them to kind of unfold compared versus Europe where I grew up. Everything is a bit more warm at first, but then you actually get to really meet a person and they're completely different.
Yeah.
So I would just say New Yorkers, they tend to just show their true colors for better or for worse. And most of the time I rather have that authentic, first experience where they're like, yeah, man, fuck off. You're in the way. And then it's oh, I'm so sorry. I was just in a rush. How's your day going? And then having that, politeness, I rather that than, some of that, just a fake smile throughout an entire interaction. I cannot handle that.
Yeah,
and a lot of that comes from New York too. They say a lot of us who have been living here for quite a bit is oh yeah, you guys are always serious, which is not true, by the way. But we do hear it from, other people. They're like, oh yeah, they're always serious or whatever. They always have a bagel in their hand or whatever it is.
Bagel and
I'm like,
coffee.
that's not true at all.
I'm
Sometimes it's a hot dog, not a bagel.
I'm taking my wife to New York. I'm taking my wife to New York in December for the first time. She's never been.
Oh, never been.
And she's either going to fit right in or get us killed. She's a very, very like, anyone who knows her knows, like, she is not afraid to speak her mind, and she's not afraid to throw down if it hit, like, right away.
I think she's going to fit right in then.
She's
that sounds like a New Yorker already.
People have thought, a lot of people think she's from the East Coast just because of like,
oh, that's funny.
and like in California, we're whatever, like to me, I've always just kind of described New York as because I have I'm half Italian and my Italian side is all in New York. So I've always associated New York is like they're cocaine and California's weed. Yeah, I know, like, and I know now they're everywhere, but I'm like the energies though is what I've always associated it as. And there is a little bit more, I think, fakeness out here in California, LA specifically. Like there's comparisons I could think you can make. Like, yes, there's a lot of it can be very status driven. And I think New Yorkers care a little bit more about fashion than Californians do. But LA people is, honesty is kind of a hard thing to come by. Whereas New York, though, much more blunt, I would associate with it. And so it's kind of like talking with you two, even though you guys have lived there. Is your entire relationship, you guys have both been in New York this entire time?
Yeah. Well, we went back to Europe during the pandemic for a very short time, but then we bounced back as soon as things were getting better.
Yeah, you guys come across very warm. Like I wouldn't think you guys are New Yorkers just because of how warm you guys are. Yeah.
A lot has to do with our friendships too and our relationships. Like we have had the pleasure, to meet so many people in school. It was such a great experience because we were in New York and it's this massive city, but we got to meet a lot of people from Europe, people from Norway, people from Spain, Portugal, Italy, people coming from all the way from LA to come and study here, and people from Asia. So we really we got to experience like the full, like the melting pot of it. Right. And it was beautiful because we got to like have dinners at people's places and eat food from a completely different culture and kind of really connect with them. And I think that has really much helped us be a bit more understanding about everybody. I think that that's definitely a gift that we've been able to experience in a city like New York.
Yeah, I think, it's very easy to get sucked into the New York bluntness of things. I remember, I lived in Northern California, like the Bay Area, for about, I think, 3 years or something like that before moving to New York. And like NorCal was my first experience in the US. So like I thought, wow, that's how it was. Right. And then I get to New York. I was so not ready for that shit. Oh my goodness. I was just getting bumped left and right. And I'm like, what is going on? It took me no time to get used to it, though. Like, at first, it's very, oh my God, these people are really, really honest, when they're like, yeah, no, I'm good, thanks, and just walk away. And you're stuck with this rejection dysphoria in that moment until you realize it's not personal and it's actually a huge load off when people just say things straight up with no bullshit.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of pressure off. It takes a lot of the overthinking out of the equation. And like for me, that was a huge source of comfort because I do tend to overthink a lot.
Likewise.
And I I do have a tendency to also take things like really personally. So like New York was a great exercise for me to, kind of shake that off a little bit. And like you said, we got to meet people from all over the world. Like it was such a fantastic experience. So like, New York is just that city that, like you said, you either love it or you hate it.
Yeah.
I feel like there's not really like an in-between there.
I would love to live there for a little bit to just the experience of the natural thicker skin. Cause it's always like a work. Like I almost got into a fight like last week. And I was willing to fight. It was the whole thing in my neighborhood.
Oh, God.
Yeah. It was this whole stupid, it wasn't like a stranger. Blah, it's a long story, and I was like, all right, I guess I'll fight this guy. but I'm like, but if I was a New Yorker, I'd probably just just charge right. I'm very like when someone's about to fight me, I weirdly become like a psychopath. Like I calm down. I get really calm, and I'm like my pulse
That's the
doesn't.
dangerous part.
Yeah, my pulse doesn't go up.
That's how you know you run.
This guy was
run if you see.
This guy was
calmness.
charging at me, and I was just like, I had a burrito, and I just put my burrito down. I was like, all right, here we go. like, all right, I'll fight you. but I do like the idea of like living in New York just to develop, because I'm a pretty sensitive guy, all things considered. He insulted my wife, and that's what got me defensive and started fighting with him.
Oh yeah.
And normally though, for me, like if someone has their phone on in the movie theater, it takes me a long time to just tell them to turn their phone off. I will fantasize for like an hour about what I'm going to say. Yeah.
Totally get that.
Yeah.
Totally get that.
Instead of whereas my wife is like, "What the fuck are you doing? Turn your fucking phone like right away." Yeah.
Are you sure she's not a New Yorker? That sounds pretty New York to me, man.
People get really intimidated by her.
Yeah,
rightfully so. But anyway, yeah. I mean, I've had such a great time talking with you guys. I feel like I should wrap this up, but I want to wrap it up with a fun one. I got a fun one.
You're stuck with us.
Yeah, I know. I'd like to do it again, and maybe when I'm in New York, if you guys are in town, it'd be cool to meet up. That'd be really fun.
Super game.
I'll crash your set.
Please.
That'd be fun. What was the movie that you guys thought was the scariest movie experience you've ever had? Actually, I got two fun ones I want to ask, so let's go with that one first.
I have a pretty, one just came to mind, and I just remember why it felt scary. I'm going to go ahead and say quite recently, actually. We actually watched this one in the movie theater, and you know, I remember I always kind of gauge how good a horror movie is based on the silence after the fact. You know? And I remember this entire theater was silent.
Okay.
After. It was Hereditary.
Oh shit!
Yeah.
You watched in the theaters?
Hereditary, yes, man. And that movie was insane.
Yeah.
I mean, I was really loving the vibe and how, you know, it was a bit of a slow burn and how you kind of had to pay attention to the family dynamics that were going on and how deep they went with that. But then it's all building up for that absolutely bonkers third act.
Yeah.
And I remember people kind of getting impatient in New York. Again, you can imagine like people are like, shit, I got to go somewhere in like 5 minutes. This movie's not moving. And then that third act came, you know, it just happened in front of us. And I remember people were locked in. And I remember feeling absolutely nauseous.
Wow.
When that
really?
movie ended.
Oh,
That's
cool.
the only movie I can remember top of my head that actually made me nauseous. I felt a mix of depression, nausea, and just this sinking feel. It felt like somebody called me with really bad news.
Wow.
And I was like, wow, this is a different level of horror. This is like, I'm feeling a physical reaction here that I've never felt before watching a movie. Normally with horror is like, it's kind of fun. You get that release of tension. You go, oh, and then you laugh about it or whatever. That movie ends and you're like, gosh, I don't want to do that again anytime soon.
Yeah, it seems like it struck you at your core. That's wild.
Yeah.
And is supernatural horror usually the thing that gets you more than anything like a serial killer horror?
I think, I think I would say so. I think that the mix of reality with the supernatural element from that movie in particular, like the heartbreak of this family collapsing, right? And I guess the thing that really struck me the most about that movie is how they could not avoid, you know, their destiny. Like, what, you know, I don't know if you've seen that movie.
Yeah, definitely.
Have you seen the movie?
Yeah.
Okay, so basically, once the whole cult aspect of it, you know, comes to light, I was like, oh shit, like they literally could not do anything about their destiny.
Yeah.
And that really sunk with, like, I had that sinking feeling of, oh my God, like you cannot run from this. Where do you go? Like, you're going to bump into a naked guy if you run outside your door. There's a dude there waiting for you. He might just, you know, trap you. If you remember that movie. Yeah, they're all around. And the more you pay attention to the movie, the more you pay attention to the movie, the scarier it gets when you realize that they are everywhere and that they are a big reason of why this, you know, things are happening to this poor family. But right out of the theater, my main thing was that family drama mixed with how things, you know, turn around with the supernatural element. So I guess the mix of both is really what gets me.
Did you
I think, sorry?
No, I was just going to ask if you rewatched it. because you get all the clues and stuff when you're like
Oh,
the
yeah.
second time around, you're like, oh my god, yeah,
One of the things that I remember once we rewatched it was catching that guy that I was talking about, the naked dude, in the beginning in the funeral scene. I was like, oh my god,
Yeah.
they're literally everywhere from the beginning. And then I started like really paying attention. I was like, I need to catch as many of these Easter eggs as I can to see if I can figure out more of the, you know, a hidden theme within the movie itself. And man, Ari did a great job with that film. I have to say that movie still, it's one that I rewatched it once. I enjoyed it, but it's going to take a minute to kind of cool down and for me to want to do it again.
I do love that movie. I love that movie a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Nice.
I think it's a really good movie.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. And Denise, what's one? I mean, for a horror fan, what is the one that like this was the scariest movie experience you've ever had?
Interestingly enough, one thing that always fascinates me is how our fears change as we grow up, right? Like as kids, it's a bit more simple. It's, you know, maybe you're scared of the dark, or you're scared of, you know, what's in your closet or under your bed. It's a little bit more straightforward, shall we say, right? It's it really very much based on your helplessness and your vulnerability as a child. So like as a kid, I remember I was terrified of Michael Myers. I watched the Halloween movie way too freaking young. Dude, oh my god, I was scared of my own shadow. It was not cool. 10 out of 10 would not recommend. But growing up, you start to discover different kinds of fears, right? Anxieties and, you know, paying bills and the different things that start stocking up, where like those basic things don't seem to matter all that much anymore. They don't frighten you as much because you feel like you have bigger problems. So that's one of the reasons why, for example, like Hereditary, I think did such an amazing job, because in a way it makes you feel so claustrophobic. It's almost reminiscent of the fears you would experience as a child, because you realize how helpless that family actually is.
Yeah.
Right. In hindsight, you're like, dude, they never stood a chance, you know? And you know what happens to that little girl? Like the scene that struck me the most, where I was genuinely, oh my god, that's a true nightmare. Like that's a nightmare that is feasible for anyone to happen to, God forbid. Hopefully it never does. But it's the decapitation scene where the brother, he's just rushing to get her to the hospital, and you can just see it in your head as an accident. Like it's feasible. And I think the fact that that is feasible, and how he refuses to look back and he just drives home in shock and just lays down in bed, that to me is true terror. It's true horror. It's in being in shock with what you've just done, with the fact that you cannot take it back, and how this teenage kid has been forced into adulthood by what just happened to him. And like that snippet right there, dude, like, you know, seeing mom in the corner floating around or banging her head, like all that is creepy and shit. But like the true fear for me was really that. And also, you know, seeing the mom, my God, Toni Collette did such an amazing job. Like the dinner scene, seeing how she's doing her best as a parent, but she just is incapable of communicating things in a healthy way. And it just blows up at that dinner. And, you know, seeing all of the dark sides of humanity, you know, like represented towards you in a way, is really terrifying. And I think those are more mature fears, I guess, you know, like in quotation marks. But again, like if you give me like a solid slasher flick that's good, that it has like, you know, the good chase sequences, you know, all that jazz, and like the good jump scares, I could definitely, you know, I'll take being scared of that for sure.
Do you still read consistently?
Not as much as I should.
The way your vernacular, like you have a good, like the way you use your words, your vocabulary, is like really well articulated. Like,
Thank you. That's very kind of you.
Like, oh, yeah,
No, it's probably because I'm obsessively researching for the book that I'm working on.
Oh, okay.
So,
well, one day I would love to read it. And I guess a more fun one would be, what can you recall the first movie theater experience you had that was the crowd going crazy?
I think.
I can. But
Oh,
go ahead, because you would probably have one way earlier than I would, I think.
No,
Or is it the same one?
I think it's the same one.
Okay, well, I think the one that where it really went wild, because we were both there and we saw it, and I've never experienced anything like it. And I'm sure, you probably, you too. It was with Avengers Endgame.
Endgame, right? Yeah,
I've never seen,
Endgame.
dude, that like,
Oh, take me back.
people are normally, I don't know how it is in LA, but people are quite vocal here when something happens, something awesome. It feels like we're all in a reaction channel, actually. Everybody's like, yes, oh, in the theater. I remember that day, that film specifically, it felt like you were in a stadium watching like your favorite team get, score points every single 10, every 10 minutes. Like people roaring, standing up, popcorn flying. Like we saw it all that day.
Yeah.
And it was the most surreal, insane, crazy, fun experience we ever had in the movie theater.
Yeah.
Like it was, we've seen great movies, but like that theater experience was just so electric. I remember it was a journey, man. We waited a whole year for that conclusion. Nobody knew what was going to happen. We sit down, the movie opens, and then we get that 5-year flash forward, like the time jump, and you're like, oh my God. And like the mood just died in the theater. Everybody went from like feeling like there was that we could do something to like absolutely defeated again to kind of like really drive the point from Infinity War, like really like, you guys are going to suffer. Yeah. And then to have that super rewarding ending, I remember people were just over the moon, man. That was a great experience.
Yeah, I think definitely Avengers Endgame. And I know it's not technically like the first, but I remember No Way Home.
Oh, yeah.
I remember just waiting and pleading and hoping. And I was like, oh my God, I need all the Spider-Man. Please, please, please. And I just remember once, that portal opens up and you see a Spider-Man like at the end of the, I was going to say hallway, the dark alley.
Yeah.
It was like, oh my God.
Oh, people went nuts.
Dude,
people went nuts.
I went ape shit. I did not even try to control myself. Like I was like gripping onto him, the chair and everything else. Like I was up on my feet.
Remember the guy
losing my mind.
The guy behind us just yelling, Andrew. Yeah. I was like, holy shit.
So
I was like, Andrew.
I saw a guy get up. He started like, ah. He's like, I'm standing in the theater front. Yeah. That's
so much fun, man.
Yeah. I think Endgame that's such an irreplaceable memory.
It really is.
And so many people I know cite that as like, even if it's not the first, like it was just the perfect culmination,
Yeah.
But weirdly enough for me, my first crazy experience, and I'm bringing it up just because of what you brought up earlier, Denise, is my first crazy experience in a theater was Return of the King. It was the first time I'd ever been with a crowd that was just like, they would not shut up. Like it was.
I can only imagine.
I didn't see the first one in the theaters. I saw the second one at a midnight show, and that's kind of a dreary movie, and I was really tired when I saw that. But the Return of the King, I saw my mom on Christmas. It was before reserved seating. I waited in line for like, I'm waiting in line for a few hours, and then we get in on Christmas Day to watch it, and the crowd was going bananas, and I had never experienced that before. And
wow,
I didn't know what to do. It was like being at a concert where you're like, I don't know how to express my emotions, and that's part of why I love doing reactions. Is like I didn't know how to express myself during that, and I'll share with you, like growing up with horror as well in my life. I used to have this cable channel called the Monster Channel. And what they would do is they would run 24 hours a day uncensored horror movies. And I was like a little kid. And I had this thing in my mind that was like, don't look away during very gory scenes. Just don't react. The whole point was the antithesis of what I do now. Don't react. Yes. Because you're a man. Be a man. And like you can handle the gore. And doing this has just sort of like what I always tell people, since I used to bring on like a bunch of guests, and now we have like a regular team. And what I always tell people is whatever you're feeling internally, this is your chance to let that out. I know normally sometimes you might be at home, you might not be as vocal, but this is a chance to let out those thoughts and those emotions. And I think because you guys probably just like, I'm very vocal. Like I'm very vocal when I'm just alone with my wife. Like we're both very vocal. We make a lot of jokes and whatever. And I think with you guys, you have translated that experience to your reaction channel in a way that I think is very genuine. And it's been an honor getting to know you guys, and I'll never speak with you ever again. No,
This is a one and done, man. This was a really, really difficult experience.
I think we all got the point. We all got the point here, right? Can we go?
No, we got the footage. We monetized our friendship. We're good. Now this is
Yeah, hell yeah, that's what it's all about.
this is all about views. I don't even know if people. We'll see. It'd be cool. I hope people watch it. It'd be cool. I really love for people to see the side of you guys, especially since you guys don't really talk about you guys being a couple. But I really love chatting with you guys, and thank you so much for lending me your time, especially at the hour that you guys are at. The day after election day. Thank you so much.
Oh, man.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, man. Thank you guys.
Honestly,
thank you guys.
No,
thank you for having us. Honestly, like it felt surreal when we first saw. It's like, well, like Greg Alba. It's like,
I want to share a story actually, if we have the time for it, really quick before I say bye.
Yeah.
And we've never publicly stated this, by the way. This is fresh news, and you're getting it here on Diary of the Real Rejects.
Of a Real
Diary
Reject.
Of the Real Reject.
Yeah.
There you go.
there you go.
So back when we were in New York, like back in the 2018, when we were living actually in Manhattan, because now we're in Brooklyn. So it's very different. You'll see when you come over. I remember it was a tough time. We were studying and then working, and it was a bit of a full-time thing. And I just want to share this because I think it's important to remember also, because we can kind of get lost in the whole, the business side of YouTube as well, which a lot of people don't know about, but also the, obviously what we do on the day-to-day. And I remember at the time, again, we were excited to go watch No Way Home, and we were servers. We were late night servers. So that's why when I tell you we're owls, man, like this is nothing for us.
Okay.
We could go on and on, right? We still have that. And we never could have a normal schedule like that. It kind of ruined it for us.
Yeah, facts.
But I remember, not to get super dramatic and sad here, but I remember, being in a very tough position. Both of us were just trying to make do, being servers during the pandemic in New York, not really the best of options out there.
Sure.
And I remember the one thing that we used to look forward to is getting back home and just putting on some YouTube and kind of watching some videos.
Oh, cool.
So here comes a day where we were like, you know what? Like, we're excited for No Way Home. We were like researching something, and this channel popped up, and we were like, oh, this looks cool. Like, they're reacting to the trailer. And it was you guys, the Real Rejects. And we actually played it. We love the reaction. We love you guys' theories and all that. So yeah, like we've known of you guys from way back.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to say it here on record. Like, I think that people, especially us in this position, we forget how much it can mean to someone just to have, that reaction that people can relate to, or that commentary. And we were in a very tough position, but I just wanted to say it because I remember going back home and putting some of, the trailer reactions or your discussions and feeling so much better about my day.
Oh,
Yeah.
And, it really meant a lot to us at the time. And it puts it into context for us it gives us that purpose in a way where, oh, I wish that we could do the same for someone else who's experiencing a bad day,
Right.
kind of disconnect from reality. Times are tough right now. Sometimes it's good to kind of just have that, escapism in a way.
Yeah.
And you guys did that for us with your videos at that point in time. And I just wanted to say thank you. It all comes back full circle.
Yeah.
We were,
Huh,
like I'm telling you, in a very tough spot, and you guys actually put a big smile on our faces.
Yeah.
And it was great. So I just wanted to share that publicly. Just
Wow.
put it out there, on
thank
the
you.
record.
I did not expect that. That's really heartfelt. Thank you. I want 10% of
Absolutely,
your
man.
channel's money moving forward.
Yes, wire transfer, ACA, whatever you want.
AdSense my way. No, that's really that's really cool to hear. I haven't experienced that. That was surreal. Thank you. I'm trying to learn to receive a compliment. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Still
It's okay.
working.
We're all kind of getting it.
Yeah, still working on that. So no, that means a lot. And watching how you guys are inspiring people, I've brought it up a few times already, but yeah, watching the way you guys are connecting with people, I think you have carved out a unique spot for yourself. There's a lot of reaction channels out there, but the consistency and the way people return, and I think your empathetic sides really do shine through in your experiences with the films, and it's really cool to see just how big you guys are getting. And I hope that you guys just get even bigger, especially with the way you guys converse about stuff. I'm like, it's really, really strong. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, man.
guys.
That means the world.
Yeah,
Thank
I
you
can't.
so
I can't
much.
wait to see how popular you guys get. And hopefully, when we're in New York, love to meet up for real. That'd be
Hey,
awesome.
Yes.
You already
That'd
know.
be- That'd be amazing.
Gotta take you to get some good slice,
Yeah,
a good
dollar
slice, hot dog, take
Yeah.
him to Nathan. Yeah. You're
Yeah.
gonna try the
That'd
good
be
stuff,
fun.
man.
Yes.
All right, guys. Well, this is Media Nights. If you haven't heard of them, what are you doing? Go follow them. You'll probably like them more than us. I've seen it in our comments. Always makes me feel good.
That's not true.
I'd rather watch Media Nights. No, yeah, go follow them, guys. And thank you, Ari and Denise, so much once again.
Thank you so much, Greg.
It was
It's
amazing.
been a pleasure.
Pleasure.
Thank you.